Based on a true story, a group of friends decide to relax in a sauna, but end up being trapped inside, risking melting to death. A very happy couple, Jenna and Jamie, are returning home from a family dinner. Soon, the smile on the girl's face turns to desperate screams after a fatal accident in which her boyfriend passed away. 3 years later, while dealing with her past tragedy, Jenna is invited to stay for the weekend at a lakeside cabin by her best friend Renee. They are joined by Renee's irresponsible boyfriend, Michael, and his friend, Ian, who would like to get to know Jenna. They sail to the lakeside cabin of Ian's uncle, Wade, who warmly welcomes them with a drink. Jenna politely declines and enters the cabin. She pulls the antidepressants from her bag that she's been taking for 3 years now, but decides to not assume them this time. In the meantime, her friends have already entered the cabin and are impressed with how cozy it is. Renee and Michael go into the room to get settled in, just enough time to allow Ian and Jenna to be alone to prepare dinner and to get to know each other better. Later, during dinner, Wade lets them know that they have been invited to a private party. Michael suggests relaxing in a sauna before the party. Jenna doesn't feel comfortable. However, her friend supports her. Jenna decides to relax and move on. She undresses and removes the engagement ring tied to her necklace. Meanwhile, the others were already waiting for her inside. Ian decides to go get Jenna and finds her in the doorway. Insecure, she goes inside with 2 bottles of water and leaves the door almost open. Michael gets up and closes it completely. While the guys are enjoying their beer, it turns out that Wade built this sauna himself. Soon, the heat becomes unbearable. And what do you do when you're dying from the heat? That's right, you increase the temperature even more. So Ian pours water over the stones to create steam. Soon, they start to suffer from the heat and decide to jump into the lake. The water is freezing, and they go back into the house. The girls take the water, while Ian and Michael have a couple of drinks. Some time passes, and they jump into the lake again, after which they go one last time in the sauna, but they have no idea that it is a one-way ticket. Drunk Michael tries to take his girlfriend into the room, but she realizes he drank too much and joins Ian and Jenna. Renee complains about how much Michael disgusts her when he's drunk, but Ian defends him. The heat seems to make both of them frustrated, and as they yell at each other, they hear drunk Michael fall. Ian is about to go check on him, but Renee for some reason stops him. Renee reveals that she's tired of supporting these behaviors of Michael's and gets up to leave, but the door is stuck. Ian tries to push it open, but to no avail. As if that wasn't enough, Jenna, who has been quiet up until now, starts to get nervous. Ian begins to tackle the door like an American football player, but once again, to no avail. Renee thinks it was Michael who locked him in as a joke and starts calling him. Jenna's situation, little by little, begins to get worse since she didn't take the pills. Ian suggests calming down and not making the situation worse by panicking. Renee, however, gets up and continues to call Michael. Then it turns out that Michael had smoked pot and that Wade is not coming back to the cabin anytime soon. So, Ian suggests thinking of a plan to get out. To encourage the girls, Ian reveals that if they don't get out of there, they will have heat stroke. That is, when your body stops cooling, you get dizzy, and eventually pass out. Soon after, Jenna finds the safety thermostat that is responsible for keeping the temperature under control. Somehow they tamper with it, and the temperature starts rising. Renee starts to panic and tries to smash the glass with a wooden spoon, but the glass is too thick. At this point, Ian grabs a rock and tries to cool it with water in their bottles. He then tries to smash the glass, but ends up cutting his hand. Ian doesn't give up and keeps hitting until he finally manages to smash the glass. Fortunately, they can breathe some fresh air and take turns as the temperature continues to rise. In the following scenes, we can see that the door is blocked by a ladder that has fallen to the ground. Despite this, Renee continues to blame Michael for everything. The situation improves, but not too much, and Ian tries to move the ladder with the stone tied to the towel. Unfortunately, the stone is too small, and he ends up getting even more nervous. Renee is about to melt them to death with her genius idea of destroying the safety thermostat. Ian and Jenna try to tell her that it's not a good idea, but Renee gets nervous and starts verbally offending Jenna. Ian comes up with a better idea, which is to turn off the electricity from inside so that he can turn off the heater. He pulls out a bulb, and this guy decides to turn off the electricity with the best conductor of electricity, water. Of course, he gets an electric shock and passes out. Eventually, the electricity turned off, but the heater continued to work. They spend the following moments in deadly heat, and the only source of light is the hole through which they breathe from time to time. As Renee apologizes to Jenna for things said earlier, Wade's dog is heard barking. The three desperately start calling for help, but the only one who hears them is the dog. Ian screams frantically as he spits up blood. Meanwhile, Wade is seen handling fireworks for the festival with another boy. As the fireworks are about to take effect, the dog is approached by Michael, who realizes that he is barking at someone. Soon, the group in the sauna hears Michael and starts yelling for help. But the sound of the fireworks is too high. The dog approaches Wade to let him know something is wrong in the cabin, but the man thinks the dog is agitated because of the fireworks. Michael shows up at Wade's and ignores Bo's barking. Michael clearly thinks that the three of them left him and attended the party since he had fallen asleep. Michael explains that he was not allowed to get to the party with the group since he didn't have a ticket and went home. Back in the sauna, the group runs out of water to drink, and Renee gets sick from the hot temperature. They desperately need to hydrate or they won't make it out alive. Renee finally decides to break the controller, thinking it will lower the temperature, but is stopped by Jenna. The girl accidentally hits her in the head with the stone, and Renee falls unconscious. Jenna collapses in fright, fearing that she has killed her. Jenna begins to go crazy and decides to break the controller herself. As was to be expected, once the safety thermostat is destroyed, the temperature begins to rise even higher, out of control. Ian, realizing that they are fried, starts crying. He becomes hysterical and acts like a madman, hitting the steamer. He ends up burning his body and dies after the steamer explodes. At this point, Jenna manages to escape from the sauna, but was actually just hallucinating. Renee wakes up, badly injured, but still alive, as Jenna tries to pull her closer to the broken window so she can breathe. With a towel, she manages to hold her up so she can breathe and recover. Later, in a state of desperation, Jenna tries to pull the rocks out of the steamer to stop the rising temperature, but ends up passing out. Michael, unaware of his friends trapped in the sauna, returns to the cabin, where flashbacks show him at the scene where he left the sauna earlier. It shows how Michael was so drunk that he dropped the ladder on the floor that ended up trapping his friends inside. Meanwhile, Wade returns to the cabin and discovers the two girls alive in the sauna. The paramedics arrive and take Jenna and Renee away while they're holding their hands. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then find out what two girls are willing to do to get the same guy.